nutritional, isn't it?
Okay,
so do you want to kind of go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Of course. So just a brief one, because today is all about you runners, but I am a sport nutritionist. I'm basically a foodie. So all my life I've been obsessed with food and what it does for you and how it makes people feel and how certain foods are amazing for certain people and give other people gut issues.
Might be having a little bit of connectivity problems. Do you want to just maybe try on a different one? Yeah, the connectivity is just
how's this?
Jumping in and around.
Any better?
Oh, we're on the move. There we go. Let's see if that's any better.
How's that?
Yeah, perfect. We'll give it a go. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should be okay. If anyone else is having connectivity problems as well, just put it in the comments and we can see it then.
Let me know. So I've basically all my life been into food. I started to work within the sport industry in my early 20s, and that kind of gave me a real zest for how important nutrition is for our athletes, and realistically how we as nutritionists can make a real difference to their final performance goals. And through lots of different means, including my healthy website and all of my background, I am now doing a master's in sport nutrition, so focusing in on elite athletes, their diet, their needs, and obviously amongst that are the endurance athletes, which include the runners. And so I'm here now. I'm one of the Running Bear ambassadors, and I'm here to give all of you guys help and advice as and when you need it for your training programs, your conditioning programs, your events, anything like that. Hopefully I can help. Do you want me to start with some questions, girls?
Sorry, it's still just breaking up a little. Might need to. Oh no, it's working fine for everyone else.
No, okay,
that's fine. It's our Wi-Fi. It's been a bit rubbish.
Okay, do you want to give me a question, girls, and I'll start with one of the questions.
Yeah, let's just see. This should hopefully be better now. Technology, not the best at times, is it? Okay. Perfect. Right.
Yeah, I said them.
Okay, so should we go into the first question then?
Okay.
Perfect. So someone has asked, what is the optimal window after training to refuel?
Oh, goodness. Well, in sports nutrition, we talk about the first hour as the window of opportunity. And what we mean by that is post-training, your body has had to use far more fuel than it would usually just for living. So we would want to replenish your glycogen stores using mainly carbohydrates. And then in addition to that, we would want to help your muscles to resynthesize because they've all been broken down from the activity you've done. So we'd also look to put back your protein losses and help improve your muscle synthesis. So the first hour, we are carbing up, and we're also introducing a significant amount of protein, looking at a ratio of about 4:1 carbohydrate to protein, and about, I don't know, 10% around about of the whole meal, around about 20% from your fat, healthy fat. There's a huge focus, however, that the first hour is where you have to do all the good, and that's not true. You can refuel up to 24 hours after you have run. It's all dependent on the intensity and duration of the run. So clearly, if you've run for 20 minutes, your needs to refuel are a lot less than somebody who's just completed a marathon or are doing ultrathons. So we take all of that into account when we look at recovery foods, snacks, and hydration. In the first hour, most athletes aren't hungry. I'm sure you girls have experienced this running. Endurance athletes, they come away from their sport, they have no appetite whatsoever. Some of them are also suffering from GI issues, so gut issues. And so we would look maybe to offer a liquid replenishment. Milk is incredible. So if you like milk, just drink milk. Add some flavor to it. There's nothing wrong with chocolate milk after you've just run for 90 minutes. So if that's going to help, great. If you are more prone to be able to eat something, then we'll look at nice carbohydrate, protein snacks. It doesn't really matter what that is. It's whatever suits you. So it could be a cheese sandwich, it could be almond butter on rice cakes, it could be a cereal bar, a slice of flapjack, you know, whatever it is. What we say to our athletes is we practice everything before events and runs. So whatever fuel we are giving our athletes on the day of their performance has been practiced during periodized nutrition, is what we call it but we train the gut for certain food and liquids that we know will aid that individual athlete. And we'd ask the same for the runners at Running Bear. Get really familiar with your body, particularly on race days. Try and replicate the race day. Try and do a similar length run. And then after it, see what happens when you drink 500 mils of milk. And if it makes you feel violently sick, then we look at different options for you. Just as good, just different. And then through all this, we know our body's a lot better, and we're able to replenish them and restore them much quicker, much more efficiently. Beyond that 1 hour window, we look at a recovery meal within 4 hours. So 2 to 4 hours after you've run, sit down and have a recovery meal. Again, we're replacing your carbohydrates for your energy. That could be in the form now of really nice complex carbohydrates, sweet potato, quinoa, rice, pasta, along with a nice portion of lean protein. So whatever that is to you, grass-fed organic beef, wild salmon, free range chicken. I always introduce the grass-fed, the free range. It's whatever you can afford, but look at the micronutrient background of food, and it has been proven that if it's organic, it's free range, you have a stronger micronutrient basis. So if you can, please try just to, you know, you're refueling your bodies. Your bodies are amazing things, particularly if you're running like you guys are. So it's all about really good nutrient dense foods. Hydration, please don't forget to drink. Doesn't matter what it is, if I'm honest, but water, milk, anything like that, just fruit juice with equal parts of water are brilliant. And a little bit of an electrolyte will just help to replace the lost sodium from sweating. So anything, a pinch of salt in your drink, maybe some pretzels with your drink. I'm not even against sports drinks post running because they have a carbohydrate and an electrolyte in them. So if that's your thing, then straight away after a run, they're quite useful just to replace the sodium and help with the carbohydrate and obviously hydration. I hope that helps. What I would say for all of these questions and answering, they're really specific to the athlete, and I'd want to know about your GI issues and other things as well to make it more personalized to you. But I'm trying to just give something that's quite broad to most of your listeners.
Okay, brilliant. Next one then is, as you just mentioned there, whether you're on like a plant-based diet or anything like that, we have a lot of obviously vegan runners these days, and I myself am pescatarian, and so what are the sources of protein for a vegan runner? Okay, plant-based diets, as we tend to sort of give them like a mushroom that involve obviously vegan. Oh, Justine, sorry, just having a problem. We can't hear you. The sound has just gone for a second. Oh, Justine, sorry, we can't hear you for a second. The sound is just gone. It's just 2 seconds, guys. We will hopefully try and get this sorted for you. I'm just going to remove Justine, and then we will bring her back again. Sorry, guys, it'll be 2 seconds. Let's bring her back on. There we go. Right, give us 2 seconds, and we will be hopefully back with her.
Here I am. Don't know what happened then.
Sorry.
So what we do is just make sure that you get all of your essential amino acids from your protein sources. But main protein sources, just to start with, within a vegan diet will be all your lentils, your beans, your fabulous chickpeas that you can roast or make into hummus, your great quinoa, which is a complete protein, which I'll come to in a minute, buckwheat, pumpkin seeds, nuts. They're all absolutely brilliant sources of protein, and they make amazing.
Is there a particular nut that you'd recommend? Like, I eat a lot of nuts.
Yeah.
Particular nuts that you'd recommend?
First of all, what you like. Okay, so if you like a nut, please don't eat it just because it's got protein in it, because there are others that are just as good, and you'll eat more of them if you like them. I would say almonds and I would say pistachios are two great nuts if you can get them into your diet. Almonds are amazing in almond butter. So if you think of those huge tubs of almond butter you've seen in your supermarket shelves, if you choose that as an alternative to maybe jam or Marmite or something that you'd equally spread on a sandwich or toast, it is packed with your protein and so many other benefits. Really good source of fat for vegans as well. I know we're talking about protein, but inevitably it's a nut that you enjoy and that you can find in a whole variety of foods and you can get access to. Yeah. Where we have most of the proteins, I mentioned that quinoa is a vegan complete protein, so it has all 9 essential amino acids in, so it's fantastic. Where we don't get that, and the majority of plant-based proteins are not, we need to consider combining. Now, it used to be thought you had to combine over a certain meal, so, oh gosh, what am I going to eat with my chickpeas to make a complete? We now understand, as long as you're eating it in around 24-hour period, it's what we call pooling of proteins. The proteins will pool together in the body, they'll make completes, and they'll go and do the work that a meat-based protein would do. So just have a wide array of proteins that we've talked about today, and incorporate them maybe over 1 or 2 meals in the day. Enjoy them, experiment, use chickpeas in different ways, look at different things. Try quinoa if you've not tried quinoa, it's brilliant. Replace it where you'd usually use rice or couscous. Nuts and everything, they're brilliant as little snacks to take with you where you go.
Every day she's on couscous, so yeah, I think
I'll try something different.
Definitely. If anyone's got
to say about that, and I've got loads of extra tips I can give to plant-based runners, but I'll move on to the next question because I know we're up against the clock.
That's fine. Like we said, we have got questions, but if anyone has any questions that you want to ask, just pop them in the comments and we'll make sure we get to them. So someone else has asked, how long before a run is the best time to eat? And I suppose it's mainly not just before a run, but before kind of any form of exercise that you're about to do. When's the best time to eat?
Yeah, okay. So what we'd look at really, so in an endurance sport, we know you're going to be exercising for probably over an hour. Your main meal, which is usually breakfast, will come about 4 hours before you run. During this time, it's what we call the carb loading phase. We just basically want you to get on board really good complex carbohydrates. They're going to give you a really nice slow release of your glycogen. Your blood sugar levels are going to stay lovely for you throughout the race, giving you the energy you need to prevent the fatigue and hopefully optimize your time. Good options at breakfast would be something like oatmeal, that's porridge, but not the instant stuff, please. Anything from steel cut down to the big rolled oats are brilliant. Have them either soaked overnight in milk, soy milk, whatever you fancy, or obviously cook them up. Anybody with excess mucus, it's fine to use just water, but otherwise, obviously milk or the plant-based alternatives. Slice up some banana with it, berries. Don't be scared. Sprinkling of cinnamon, fantastic for your metabolism. Dollop of natural yogurt, Greek yogurt, raw honey if you have to have a bit of extra sweetness. It's a really good breakfast to have. Alternatives would be a brown multigrain toast with any form of eggs you want on it. A smoothie. Some people go, I just cannot eat. I can't eat the day before I run. I'm nervous. I have no appetite in the morning. I'd say let's get at least some liquid carbs into you. So whack a banana in your smoothie maker, throw in some frozen berries, maybe a couple of scoops of yogurt, milk. Get it in that way, whiz it up and try and drink it. It really will benefit you. And the longer the race, it's so important. Fresh orange juice to go with it, plenty of water. And then the next point would be between an hour and down to 20 minutes prior to the race. And this is where I totally change and I go to the refined carbohydrate. And it's not often I say that, but we're looking for quick release energy. So anything in the form of what I'd call little squares of flapjacks, banana bread. Try and make it homemade because the processed have loads of extra things in that you don't need. So it could be that you like cereal bars, something like that, a banana, anything where it's quick release of energy, hits your system, and it's really easy on your digestion. What we don't want is high fiber, high fat foods. They're going to really slow you down. Your gut's going to work really, really hard to try and digest them. They're going to sit in your stomach. They're going to give you some gut issue. So avoid them, but have a nice refined carbohydrate. And like I've said before, this is all down to training. Let's train the gut. We talk about gut adaptation. So just if you suffer from, even when you have a tiny amount of carbohydrate, you then feel it when you run. During your training, up to like 6 to 8 weeks before an event, start to add a little bit more carbohydrate half an hour before you run, and make that the flapjack or the cereal bar or whatever you're going to take with you on the day. Your gut adapts, it learns, it recognizes, uh-oh, I'm running in 20 minutes. That's why I've been given this. And slowly over a period of time, most people's guts will accommodate more carbohydrate, more fluid, more nutrients. And so you'll have less gut discomfort, better gastric emptying time, so your stomach will empty quicker, and that will obviously optimize your performance.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. So next one is, we'll take it in turns. I keep reading out all the questions. I forget. Sophie's actually here. She needs to read them out too.
Is there a benefit on running on an empty stomach before a morning run?
Oh, this is controversial. We call this fasted training or training low, and it's really, really popular, particularly in low body weight sports. So ketogenic diets is probably something you and all your runners will have heard of. And it's where we restrict or stop carbohydrates. And the reason that we do that is because we can then utilize fat. So we fat burn, and our bodies, if they haven't got the stores of carbohydrates accessible, will go to fat. It depends on the specific requirements of the runner. If you are wanting to lose weight, clearly, if you are training on fasted or training low, you're going to use up fat stores. And so there will likely be a weight loss, a benefit from that if you need to lose the weight. That said, if you're going into a long run, I would not recommend you try fasting, because the carbohydrate is the body's choice for a reason. It can break it down really quickly, really efficiently, and fuel your body really effectively. It cannot do that. It takes longer, your body works much harder, and that will slow you down. So it is a balance here. Use it if you need to, maybe during training for a period of time, but please don't rely on it, and please don't stay on it for too long, because it'll end up actually being detrimental for the majority of people in their overall performance times.
Okay, especially those who are maybe kind of like, when they're not up to the ultra kind of level, you know, where it's...
You need your carbohydrates, and we would be giving you carbohydrates throughout the run every 45 minutes in addition, just because science has proven as you're running on endurance like that, you cannot be sustained on your fat stores. You've got plenty of fat on you. You can live for a month on your fat stores, but we can't break it down and be performing at our maximum, because our bodies are going to have to work much harder to break the fat down than the carbohydrates. So we would always look at carbohydrate as the first form of energy for endurance runs.
Yeah, okay. This isn't one that I've got another one from someone else at the moment, but the first is kind of related to that. We have a lot of customers that come in and say they are losing a lot of salt. So, you know, almost like salt is crystalline, and what can they take for that? Sometimes that they find the electrolytes aren't, you know, benefiting them, and they'll just have like sachets of salt, or just what would you recommend?
Yeah, again, a lot of people don't like sport drinks. It gives them GI issues. They're conscious of all the different levels of sugars and associated issues regarding sport drinks. So from the benefit of replacing your sodium, which is so important, if we don't replace that sodium, we end up in all sorts of problems. It's down to whatever. You can add a pinch of salt to your drink if it doesn't affect your enjoyment of the drink. You could have a salty snack with it, so salty peanuts, pretzels, something like that, with the fluids. We don't want to just eat the salty peanuts, because then we dehydrate ourselves as well. So it's always alongside the hydration. And there are electrolyte tablets as well that you can just drop into drinks, and then you can your own drink. You can make you know, fruits, for example, they have a slight electrolyte property anyway. So if you have a fruit juice, then you are actually helping to restore some of that sodium. But you can choose the natural method. A pinch of salt, again, is a pinch. It's about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Don't go adding too much. It's incredibly effective way of restoring your sweat loss. But certainly that is something post-exercise, particularly in the first hour or two after exercise, you should definitely be doing, is restoring your sodium levels.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Well, that answers that. It's always good to know, isn't it? Because everyone has kind of their own ways of doing things, but we do get a lot of customers that say they're missing that salt in their training, and crystallizing. I know they're losing a lot of salt, so
there's plenty of fancy drinks around that have the electrolytes added, so that, but equally it's just as you can get it just as easy by adding a little bit of salt to your drink, or obviously a salty snack alongside water just to replace it.
Okay.
Even pasta-based sauce often has quite high levels of salt, so if you're having a little pot of pasta in your recovery hour, that will obviously contribute to your sodium replacement as well. So consider those things. Look at the sodium contents of what you'll be having. You might find you're doing it anyway, but certainly you need to consider that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so the next one is about children. I'll let,
So one question said, an example would be my son, 12, almost 13, swims 4 times a week, finds it difficult to eat after he swam late at night, finishing after 9 o'clock and after a 90-minute swim. Any tips on what is good recovery for evening? Usually eats whatever I've made for the rest of the family, just wrapped up, pasta, shepherd's pie, etc. He'll eat a snack after school of pasta and pesto or beans on toast before he swims. So mainly what can
children nutrition. Is it the same as adults? Is it different? What would you recommend for people?
I've got personal experience. My daughter used to be a proficient swimmer, and I recognise that it's long hours, it's antisocial hours, it's 7 in the morning swims, it's finishing at 9. Children are always tired. Children are rarely that bothered about food, and they're certainly not interested in talking about nutritional plans to enhance performance. So there's those factors. The first thing, and this is the case for anybody, and certainly any runner and athlete, but particularly children, we always make sure that their calorie intake matches their calorie output. It's incredible the amount of energy that any athlete will use over a 90-minute training session, in addition to whatever else they've done that day. And it's particularly in children, but we're all prone to it. We don't seem to recognize how much we need to replace in terms of calories in order that we don't fall into a deficit. So the first thing I would say, particularly with a child athlete, is let's make sure that we're matching calorifically what their output is for the day. What sounds lovely there is that obviously this 14-year-old boy is eating. He's eating pasta beforehand. He's eating leftovers afterwards. Most importantly, he's probably achieving his calorie balance there, his energy balance. In terms of what he should be eating and when, training is difficult. Swimming is a nightmare. You can't eat in the water. There isn't, you have to consider portable things that maybe you can throw in your swim bag. You have to consider the time after a swim to get showered, changed, back in the car, back home. The fact you're home at night, you've got school in the morning. I wouldn't worry too much about the perfect recovery dinner at the perfect times. It's not going to happen. I'd look more at, again, the child. What's the child's preferences? What are the sort of foods the child likes? And then I'd create a 4-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate, protein with some healthy fats thrown in. The pasta's fine. If he can tolerate pasta before he swims, we find a lot of swimmers saying they don't want anything that's heavy on their tummy that they're going to have to digest while they're trying to swim 400-500 lengths of a pool. But if that is tolerable, then obviously that's absolutely fine. If we get to a situation whereby that's not going to be tolerable, don't beat yourself up. Think about maybe a peanut butter sandwich. Think about some pita, a wrap, something which is what you'd class as like a snacky meal, a small snacky meal. Try and get some lean protein in there, some maybe some chicken or maybe some cheese, something just to keep the athlete going. That's a couple of hours before the swim. A little bit like pre-run, if you can, about 20 minutes before. It could be liquid, it could be a smoothie, it could be something which the child will tolerate, a little bit of flapjack, a cereal bar, muesli bar, something like that. Nice refined carbohydrates, just that little bit of energy to get them through the 90-minute swim. And most importantly, with swimming, hydration. You wouldn't believe, indoor, humid environment, 27-degree water, you forget thirst. You don't get a thirst in those conditions. You're in the water, your body forgets it's thirsty. So plenty of water before you go, or however much you can tolerate. Keep your water bottle by the pool. I see it in training all the time, and it's great actually, but remember to drink it as well. And then have a fresh water bottle or drinks. I'm not that bothered, particularly with children. If it wants to be a diluted cordial or half and half with a fresh juice, that's fine.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Yeah.
In the recovery, like I mentioned with the milk before, children love chocolate milk. It's a perfect recovery drink for them, and they will have expended so many calories. Don't worry about that. They've got the protein, they've got their carbohydrate balance. If they will tolerate something like, I don't know, pizza and hummus, rice cakes, crackers with cheese, something that they can take in the car or poolside. The pretzels, the salty pretzels are always good with some water.
That's music to my ears.
Yeah, you know,
and hummus, tick, tick, tick.
Everything like that. Just try and make it fun, and a little pot of pasta maybe afterwards. If obviously when the child's back at home they still are capable or wanting to eat, then any leftovers are fine. Again, if it's a family meal, it's going to be balanced to 4:1 ratio, hopefully. Avoid the fatty foods. It's obvious really. Avoid the heavily processed foods, because not only do we not need them in our diet, but it's late at night and they're going to affect your digestion, so they're going to affect your sleep pattern. And the second most important thing after nutrition, or alongside nutrition in sport, is rest. And if we're doing things that affect our rest, then we're letting the benefits in the first place. So avoid any high fatty fried foods, but don't worry about it. Just make sure you get the calories in and you're giving the foods that are fueling and the child enjoys.
Yeah, perfect. What's the best way to, I always think, what's the best way to figure out how many calories you do need to be taking on?
Okay, well, there's lots of different formula, which I won't bore you all with, but there's plenty of sites you can all go to if you want to work out exactly what levels of protein and carbohydrates you need. And what I would say for endurance is usually we'd look at, first of all, what your training program is and what length of runs you do. So obviously the further you train, the further you run, the more your body requires. Ideally, with regards to protein, I'm just trying to guess this now, it's between about 1.2 and 1.4 grams per kilogram body weight per day. So you can work that out. If you know your kilogram weight, you can work out between about 1.2, 1.4. It's slightly higher if you're starting to work toward really big runs, really big races. So have a look at that. With regards to your carbohydrate intake, anywhere between around 6, 7, up to 12 grams per kilogram body weight per day. Again, based on your training program, the levels of intensity and the endurance, how far you're running, but around about that. Most importantly, it's when you receive these. So we've talked about carbohydrates. We carbohydrate load quite a lot before, 4 hours before we do a sport, and then small amount just before, and then if we need it, i.e. 90-minute plus races, intermittently throughout. Protein, we rather you'd break it down into 5 amounts throughout the day, because that's how we best synthesize the protein. Most important is that you take 1 just before and 1 really important recovery just after your run. So, but about the same amount. So break it down into 5 equal sized portions of protein. Okay. And then you'll be doing.
Last question. Do you want to read that one out?
Would love to know if a poor diet correlates with how quickly you recover from an injury or illness.
100% it does. We are what we eat, and certainly when we are recovering from illness or injury, we are always looking really, really closely at the micronutrient input to our athletes. So we always ask for a varied, wide, whole food diet, which incorporates plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables. Mm-hmm. Those fruit and vegetables, I say, get them in rainbow colors, because the different colors of the fruit and vegetables attributes itself to different micronutrients. It's as simple as that. So if we have a rainbow plate going on a daily basis, you should be getting the majority of the micronutrients you need. Equally, it's, as we've talked about before, it's about meeting your caloric demands. You have to stay out of a calorie deficit. If you fall into a calorie deficit for too long, and we're all prone to it, particularly if we're in endurance sport, we like to stay in a low body mass index, we start to injury, or we start to become more prone, our immunity will suffer. Equal, obviously, if we are already incurred an injury or an illness, it's even more important that we focus on the micronutrient and keeping on top. That said, there are always rooms for improvements. Most of us are vitamin D deficient, particularly living in Northern Hemisphere countries like UK, particularly in winter months. And so,
I mean, that's very rare we get.
It's a deficiency that you wouldn't recognise you had. You know, we can all be deficient in vitamin D, and 99% of us won't have any symptoms. But it will affect our performance. It will inhibit our ability to optimise. So your diet is so important. That's why sport nutritionists exist, because the industry understands that nutrition is what we call the invisible trainer. It's the section of training that you don't necessarily see. But in terms of optimizing your performance, I cannot tell you how important it is that you don't become deficient, that you don't have a poor diet just because you can still stay slim on it. The carbohydrates that you put into your body, the protein, the different types of protein, picking the correct ones, picking the healthy fats, the extra virgin olive oils, which are literally a lubricant to your body. And we all need lubricant, particularly runners and swimmers. The micronutrients that are abundant in a plant-based and whole food diet that some of us just do not eat enough of, particularly athletes who need more of them because we work our bodies harder. So please, one thing from today, really think about your diet, and it's super easy to fall into a rut, and then sometimes we can end up in all sorts of deficits which will incur injury and make us more prone to illness.
Yeah. I know you've touched on it before as well, is transitioning from summer to winter in terms of nutrition. So what are you kind of that, and what might people not think about?
Well, the vitamin D is the big one. I mean, I would recommend for everybody, really. I mean, obviously speak to your doctor if you're on any other treatments, but a vitamin D supplementation for people, particularly people who are running and athletes, vitamin D supplementation from September onwards all the way through the autumn winter months is a must. It's one of those things. It's like when you wake up on what I call a Barocca day, you know, you're feeling good.
Yeah.
It's when you're not waking up on a Barocca day, you might be harboring a very small deficiency in something like vitamin D, but it's enough just to take the edge off wanting to do your run, or to optimize your training, or to optimize your event, or to allow your body to achieve what it's capable of. So there's no reason to be deficient in it. It's super easy to take a vitamin D supplementation. They're in every shop. I'd recommend get a good one. The ones that are probably more available, they usually come in those like clear capsules that dissolve very easily. There's various stores and companies that sell them, but vitamin D is the main one for the change in season, and that's the one supplementation I'm going to recommend today would be vitamin D for all the runners.
We're going to have to tell about Johnny's question. So Sophie's Johnny Mellor, who you may have seen if you watched the London Marathon, just hyping Johnny. He's put, do you recommend chocolate digestives or chocolate hobnobs to aid recovery after training? I mean,
every time.
Yeah.
The chocolate hobnob would be a chocolate hobnob. It would be the chocolate hobnob because it's actually probably less processed. They're both fine. If you've done that much training, Johnny, you could enjoy either. No food should be off limit. We're always looking at a healthy balance, and we recognise that athletes are humans, and that if you have just run a race, then you feel entitled to treat yourself, and there's nothing wrong with sharing the. Personally, Johnny, I'd go with the chocolate hobnob, but if you're a digestives man, that's no problem.
But that does lead on to people being allowed to treat themselves, though, isn't it? I think there's so many runners, isn't it, that we get in that have kind of, you know, have started taking up running, they're finding the confidence to take up running and join Couch to 5K. It's them to treat themselves, basically. Remember, that is important.
Yeah. Treat yourselves. Food should be enjoyable. Don't eat what you don't enjoy, because A, it's not sustainable, and B, it's usually a reason. If you don't like a food, it probably doesn't suit you. I came into at the age of 11. In a big family with 2 Irish doctors that worked, parents that worked about a gazillion hours a week, one of 4, mental health. I turned around and told everybody I was going to become vegetarian. My parents turned to me and said, well, you'll have to cook every single meal yourself. And by the end of the year, I was cooking for the entire family.
Wow.
And I realized that the foods that I was eating just didn't suit me. I wanted this different diet. And I think everybody as we get older, certainly we start to recognize which foods do and don't suit. Some people, I know it's a very common one, they don't like bread. Oh, it blows me out, I feel bloated, I'm gain weight. Other people can eat bread till it comes out their ears. They're never a problem, they digest it very quickly. So it's never one rule suits all, ever. And we'll always look at individual training plans, nutritional plans for all of our athletes, and we'll always base the advice on them in terms of foods they like, and we'll fit them in. That said, obviously, if it's McDonald's 5 times a day, we're going to have to work with that athlete and try them on. And that sometimes is the case, maybe not 5, but lots of athletes, when they first come to us, will not have ideal diets one bit. And we will always allow them, if they like Cocoa Pops, it's very, very difficult to stop them eating Cocoa Pops. And actually, if we give it some milk and it becomes a recovery meal, it's the same as Johnny's chocolate biscuits. It pick your poison. If you like Cocoa Pops, then there's always a time in the day that, especially if you've exercised, that you can allow yourself that treat and have it with some really good organic semi-skim milk or soy milk, just for me. And then at least we're doing something to replace something in our bodies. But no food's a sin. I just really think it's important that we start to focus on what nutrition is. And the more that we start to realize it's important, straight away you start to get more interested in what you're putting in your bodies and the benefits of a blueberry over something else. And that's what it's about, just enjoying the food you eat, liking its flavor, knowing what it's doing for you, knowing if you combine a vitamin C product with an iron rich, you're helping with the bioavailability. So broccoli, squeeze a little bit of lemon on it and it's really going to help you get the iron out of it, things like that. Once you know, you're asking for lemons in restaurants to squeeze on your broccoli. You just can't help yourself, girls.
Yeah, okay, well I'll keep back in. Okay, it's a very, very quick question for me.
Yeah.
You see everyone you see intolerance tests, etc., everywhere at the moment. Do you think it's worth having something like that done?
Again, it's very specific to your actual issues. GI issues, gut issues are massive, and it's an area that I really, really enjoy, because I think it's a lot of people suffer in silence. It's not the sort of thing you want to talk about. If you suffer from, the runs or really bad sickness, we've done a big paper on it recently, just looking at the number of elite athletes that have literally missed out on quite massive, performances in their careers because they were vomiting profusely before and after the race. Yeah. It's massive. And that's why gut training and gut adaptation programs are so key right now. When we look at periodized nutrition, often with athletes, a section of that will be training of the gut. It'll be certain liquids, certain nutrients or carbohydrate in particular that we need to incrementally increase in their training load to allow their gut to adapt. And so is there any reason to get an intolerance test? Probably not. You probably know which foods make you prone to feeling sick or whatever. What I would say is, more importantly, start to read your body, start to adapt, start to use your training program as an opportunity to slightly increase the amount of carbohydrate, the fluids, and just very incremental. Don't go from having 0 milk before a run to a pint, just small amount of fluids and nutrients, particularly carbohydrate. Your body adapts, your gut adapts, you'll find your transit time improves, you'll find your stomach discomfort goes. Trigger foods, clearly, again, don't go near high fiber foods, particularly if you suffer GI issues. Don't go through close to fatty foods before or just during your race. Save them for the recovery stage. They're very tough on your digestion. So that would be my top tips. The intolerance tests, they have a place. And clearly, if you have real issues, it's always worth going to see a specialist. But maybe try some gut training and adaptation as well first.
Okay, yeah. And then I suppose lastly, it's just kind of obviously going into lockdown. Everyone's snack cupboard is most of the time. And I suppose fall into quite bad habits. I know last lockdown, I started off kind of really well. And then towards the end of it, I was just like, I'll just eat anything. You eat at whatever times, because a lot of people are working from home, so they don't have a set lunchtime and things like that. Yeah. It's quite easy to fall into bad habits. What are your kind of top tips during lockdown to just maybe even for the first time try and get your nutrition where it should be and do all this kind of gut training, as you speak? What are your top tips for staying well behaved during lockdown, shall we say?
Well, be organised and be true to yourself. So you know, I have treats every day and I pick my poison. So don't make anything off limits, but maybe when you have a moment when you're not hungry or tired, sit down and make a list of foods that you're going to buy, a list of meals you're going to make, snacks that you're going to have, freeze some, get organized, start enjoying taking control of what you eat, because you're, as athletes, I don't know why I'm pointing to myself here, as athletes, you guys out there, you work what you do to fill your face full of rubbish.
It's just run a little bit funny.
I know I've lost connection. I was trying to hide from the sun. So
But you know,
really try and consider the foods that are good for you, that you like. And there's so many foods out there. If you go on, I'll share, you could share a link for me maybe after this, but I have a food blog, and on there are recipes that I've adapted. So like brownie recipes and all the things that are supposed to be terribly bad for us. And I've adapted them. So I've swapped out some of the really bad ingredients, or I've reduced them, and I've added in a few others. And if my children don't taste the difference, I very much doubt any of you are going to have a huge issue with them. So try swapping out certain things. Get your favorite recipe for whatever you like, or your favorite food or dish, and swap out some of the rubbish and just see the differences you can make. Lockdown's a month. You can do a lot of damage in a month. You can do a lot of good in a month. Or try and do something in between. Try and moderate everything. So if you know you're going to have chocolate hobnobs, Johnny, pick how many you're going to have. I say you invite the devil to the table. So if you know, invite the devil to the table. Know that the devil's coming to dinner with you that night. Know you're going to have your chocolate hobnobs, but then decide how many you're going to give yourself. So don't have the whole packet open. Just maybe take 2, 3, whatever it is you're going to commit to, and then stick to that. So it's all about control, and inevitably it's about powering and fueling our bodies. So there's nothing wrong with the chocolate hobnob. There's nothing wrong with chocolate milk, but we need to balance it. We need to consider all the whole foods, all the goodies that are out there, the rainbow plate, the incredible hot, fresh fruits and vegetables, and all the other wonderful sweet potato. Why have a normal potato when you can have a sweet potato? It's absolutely packed with goodness, and it tastes amazing, and you can even make amazing homemade chips with them in the oven, and you'd get a green light from me.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant. Well, you're on hand, aren't you, in the Running Bear Running Club Facebook group? So if people have got any questions, pop anything in there as well. So yeah, that's on Facebook under Running Bear Running Club. It's a group, so feel free to join that and I'll accept you in. And then our wonderful Justine is on hand. But yeah,
Always.
Johnny's put great advice, fuel for the fire. So
exactly, Johnny. No, it's been really good. I've really enjoyed hopefully a couple of tips there for you all. But like, anybody has anything in specific they want to talk to me about, or anything further, then feel free to contact me through Running Bear, and I'm very, very happy to give you some more advice.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Justine. It's an absolute pleasure. So yeah, helped everyone. All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Have a lovely lockdown, everybody. I'll see you on the other side. And like I say, any help you need, definitely get in touch.
Perfect. Thanks, Justine.
Great to see you all.
See you soon.
Bye. Bye.